Now, 10 major quoted companies recorded a combined 14.4 trillion naira revenue and 4.99 trillion naira profit before tax in H1 2026, according to an assessment by the Nigeria Revenue Service. Now, the revenue is up 36% from 10.59 trillion naira in H1 2025, while profit before tax rose 66.7% from 2.99 trillion naira. MTN Nigeria led revenue at 2.99 trillion naira, with profit before tax at 1.09 trillion naira. While we see Dangote Cement recording 2.51 trillion naira revenue and a 981 billion naira profit. We see Seplat Energy posting 2.5 trillion naira revenues there, while Aradel Holdings recorded the strongest growth, with revenue jumping 576.9% to 2.49 trillion naira. The NRS attributed the stronger corporate performance to improved macroeconomic stability, FX reforms, tighter monetary management, and greater investment confidence. Now, following the Tinubu administration's economic reforms, that is. Now, Nigeria's economy has also moved from acute macroeconomic distress in 2023 towards greater stability and resilience, according to the Nigeria Revenue Service's Economic Snapshot Report. The report highlights 3.9% GDP growth in H1 2026, inflation at 15.9%, foreign reserves at $51.9 billion, and crude production of 1.73 million barrels per day. It also points to a rise in domestic refining capacity from 30,000 barrels per day in 2023 to 700,000 barrels per day. The NRS says the key drivers include fuel subsidy removal, FX unification, the Petroleum Industry Act, and we see tighter monetary policy and tax reforms also named as some of the reasons there. Now, Arise business analyst Chika Mbonu joins me to discuss this further. Good morning, Mr. Chika. Great to see you.
Abby, how are you today?
Very well, thank you. And I hope you are too. Let's begin with your overall assessment of these reports.
I mean, this morning, the first day of the week, I'm not going to walk through a line mine discussing this issue, but this is something that I have to professionally discuss. Because of this, I see the number of figures you'll be pouring out there, and I also try to refer to my notes substantially to make sure that we'll get it right. I think we must start by giving credit to where credit is due. And Nigeria today is not standing exactly where it was in May 29, 2023. I mean, since some very difficult decisions, reforms have been taken, and we must give credit to whom credit is due. The FX market architecture is more market-based. We all know that. Government revenues, as you talked about also, your rundown has increased substantially. External buffers have strengthened. These are things that you have pushed out in your rundown. Oil production has improved. Domestic refining has undergone structural transformation. Trade account has strengthened. Capital market has performed extraordinarily well. And tax administration has also been substantially reformed. Abi, this achievement should not be dismissed simply because somebody disagrees politically with any government. Neither should the opposite also, happen. The opposition government always believe that when somebody talks the way we're going to talk about in this program, somebody is anti them. That's not what it is. I do remember, David, at my university days, I read civil engineering. I remember the course called engineering mathematics. First semester, I scored 94%. The prof said that's a lot of room for improvement. And then second semester, I scored 97%. He still wrote, that's still a lot of room for improvement. So, be that as it may, we made the mistake, as I commend the government for the things they've done, especially the political will to even take these initiatives. Because you do recall that the government before them, the head of state there president then was almost like, what celebrating that, he didn't do this, he couldn't do this, he couldn't do this, remove the fuel prices. He couldn't do this because he didn't want to hurt the people. But the president came into power May 29, 2023, and took these initiatives. So, but we will not do that. So, a good macroeconomic report is not the same thing, Abby, as a good household economy report. My question this morning is very simple. Has the Nigerian balance sheet improved? Clearly, yes. No matter the party that you belong to, it has improved. Indeed, Abby, I've constantly said that whether it was candidate A or B or C or D that won, contrary to the president in power now, in 2023, if any of them didn't carry out the initiatives that the President Tinubu took, Nigeria would have been so much under the water by now. So commend the president for the political will. So the Nigerian balance sheet has substantially improved. We'll give them that. But has the Nigerian family balance sheet improved to some extent? Not yet, not yet. So we'll be fair. So, and that for me is where the phase 2 of this turnaround reform program must begin, And so I continue to give the government these flowers. I must continue to give the flowers. You can't professionally analyze the economy and say nothing has improved. That will simply not be supported by evidence. You already went through them. Good GDP growth, positive, inflation coming down, FS regime better, the monetary policy rate, the indices are there. So we must give the government its flowers. They have done well in that respect. But here is the first big question. The turnaround is for who? The turnaround is for who? And the government of president should just try and take this in good heart. The turnaround is for who? It's for who? An economy, I believe, for our viewers, the economy operates in 3 levels. The macroeconomy, the business economy, and the household economy. Nigeria's macroeconomy has clearly improved faster than its household economy. That's what we can put out there. So Abuja measures GDP. Mama Nkechi measures the economy by the price of rice, transport fare, school fees, and whether there's anything left on Sunday evening. And that's where the bridge is. And that's where the challenge is for the government going forward. So, but the World Bank even, not us analysts, Nigerian analysts talking about this, the World Bank that the government in power also celebrates, accept their reports, says poverty remains widespread and estimates that 6 million Nigerians were below national poverty line in 2025. And about 7% poverty hole, and say poor households spend more than 7% of their money on food. That's real for World Bank. So the reform may be working in the spreadsheets before it's working sufficiently in the kitchen for most families. And that's, for me, the message to the government in this respect. So what I will try to do in the short time that we'll have is look at some of the key indices, whether it's inflation or GDP or exchange rate, and just rest 1 or 2 points. And key issues there around them, and watch. And then my suggestions to the government will have to work on the household economy, because the macroeconomy, as I've given the government its flowers, its accolades, take it. They have done very well, but the issue is how to get this to the home, to the home. The inflation, for example, but it's good news, but with an important warning. Inflation is, the report says inflation has come down from 15.9%, down from up 34% in 2024 December. That's absolutely correct. We acknowledge that. They've done well in that respect. But let me explain to the ordinary Nigerians. Falling inflation does not mean falling prices. Falling inflation does not mean falling prices. Let me just help our viewers. What has happened is that if a price of something was 10,000 before, and it moves to 13,500, I moved to 15,000. What's happened now is that inflation coming down sharply does not mean the price has come back to the original 10,000. What it means that instead of moving from 15,000 to 20,000, that sharply is moved to like 15,000 to 16,000. So prices are still increasing. So lower inflation means the fire is still burning more slowly. It does not mean everything that the fire already fire consumed, it has magically returned. So the things that were lost because of inflation are not going to come back. But the fire is reducing, and that's what that means. That's what that is. Let me talk about GDP. We haven't talked about inflation. It's good. The 3.9% is good. But the next question is this. How much is the real per capita growth? The real per capita growth. On absolute numbers, the growth is good. But remember, Nigerian inflation in the population is increasing in multiple numbers higher than the GDP growth. So increasing Nigerians have become poorer. Nigerians have become poorer. So, and the growth has not been consistent. The GDP growth, I thought about it on this program, that the GDP is growing doesn't mean every sector is growing. It hasn't been consistent. So question is this, which sectors are really growing? Are they labor intensive? Because that will impact unemployment and employment. Are they creating millions of productive jobs for the economy? So GDP can grow without their salary growing, Abby. And the real victory comes when GDP growth produces jobs, income, and purchasing power. That's what. So while we celebrate the growth in GDP, the issues, can this translate then to employment, income levels growing, and household income getting better? Let me look at another one that was celebrated, foreign investment. You know, the report talks about capital importation, 3.9 billion in 2023, has moved to 23.2 billion in 2025. That is commendable, but let's look a little beneath it. Again, hear me out well. Out of this growth, foreign direct investment is about only 135 million naira, dollars, $135 million. And then 95% of it is foreign portfolio investment. Foreign portfolio investment, that's the balance, $9.8 billion. So that's the crucial issue now. Portfolio investors buy financial assets. FDIs are more likely to mean more factory, more production line, more warehouse, more farms, and so on. So I welcome foreign money coming to Nigeria, securities, but I want more foreign money building Nigerian factories. So the money coming in so far is buying Nigerian stocks, shares, also helping, I guess, have an impact on the stock market. But the things that we would prefer to happen are these foreign direct investment are coming, that build factories, they have set up farms, create employment, and stay here for a longer term, not the hot money. So the FPIs are not the same thing as FDIs, okay? Hot money votes with a mouse. A mouse can move the money out of the country. But FDI votes with concrete, machinery, and payroll. So that's why we prefer more foreign direct investments. You know, but however, let me acknowledge that the report also said that they acknowledge this weakness and hope that we'll move more towards foreign direct investment. Interest rate, let me look at the IB interest rate. The price we're paying for stability. The MPI is 26.5%, according to the report. The question I have for Nigerian manufacturers is this: at what interest rate can you actually borrow? That's my question for that. So an effective commercial borrowing rate is like the issue. We need an interest rate higher to control inflation. But in doing that, borrowing costs have gone very high. So we're solving one problem and creating another problem. So that is that. So we hope that the medicine may be controlling the fever, but we must watch for the side effects. So interest rates have gone up to control inflation, but they have side effects. So exchange rates, let me look at that also quickly. Unification helped us. At the time, there were multiple rates in the country. You know, at 2023, the official rate was about 473 to 700. Now it's about $1,360 naira per dollar. So we have substantially improved architecture of FX market. That's different from saying the naira has recovered all purchasing power and loss. That has not happened. You know, it's stabilized. People can plan better, but that value can only be recovered when the economy becomes more productive. And that's another thing for the government to work on, okay? And so external reserves, Abby, in the little short time I have remaining, you know, they said $3.99 billion unencumbered versus in 2023 versus a gross of now about $51.52 billion. Now, gross, net. You're comparing net to 2023 to gross of now. So the comparison does not match. While we commend the increase in figures, we need to match like with like to see the improvement, okay? The external position has unquestionable strengthened, but position analysis, Abby, requires like-for-like comparison, just like I've said, so that we gross reserves against gross reserves, net reserves against net reserves, so we can see the improvement. And as I move towards the end, the debt to GDP ratio is what we're flaunting. It tells us whether the country's shoulders are getting broader. But what's important to us is debt service to revenue. That's what's important. It tells us how difficult it is to breathe every month. So if you are spending so much of our revenue in servicing debts, it means that the other side of the economy are going to suffer. We can't make the investment. And that's where the problem is, not just debt to GDP ratio. So this is very important. And I'm going to push towards the end. The tax revenue, this is a real achievement of the government, and we must commend the government in this one. The fact that they pushed tax revenue from 12.3 trillion in 2023 to 21 trillion in 2024 and 28 trillion in 2025, with strong collection in 2023. So that's that. So the issue is real versus nominal. So, Abby, as I push this to an end, let me say one or two things. If you have 1 minute.
1 minute.
1 minute, Abby. 1 minute. 1 minute, Abby. 1 minute.
Okay.
Just give me 1 minute. I'll tell you.
I even wish we had more time because I also wanted you to comment on the major upstream transactions because we see Aradel, we see the performance of Satellite Energy, but we don't have time.
Yes.
So 1 minute, please.
My 10 priorities for government now, that's what I want to end.
Yeah.
Make food affordability, number one, for the household. Convert the portfolio inflows into FDIs.
Right.
Drive inflation substantially to single digits. Create a credible pathway for cheap credit for the manufacturers and SMEs. Turn higher government revenue into visible development for the economy at the different state levels and the local government. Raise oil and gas production substantially while accelerating non-oil exports. Fix electricity and logistics for the country. 2 and more taxes on Nigerian businesses. Attack youth unemployment, very important. And treat human capital as economic policy, education, health and nutrition. And measure response success increasingly by household incomes, not simply by macro indicators.
All right, that's a really great note. Some very cogent points that you've put. So, of course, we have to give honor where it's due, but there's also some very important questions. What is the ultimate trickle-down effect? And that's really what we want to know. I want to thank you, Mr. Chika Mbonu, for very great, robust, detailed analysis as always. And we'll see you again very soon. Thank you.